All right, guys, this is going to be a wrist lock seminar. Wrist locks are all very weird because your hand can get bent forward or backwards, and there's a lot of different ways to trap the arm and actually get the wrist lock submission. I'm going to go over how to hit the submission by itself first, and then later the transitions, like how it leads to other things. First, the two fun ones, the two standing ones. I'm not even going to get into a lot of detail about describing the wrist lock on these because they're pretty self-explanatory, but they are fun. Can I use you, brother? So the two standing ones. So we're here. My partner grabs my gi. We've got a young blue belt who I taught this to, and now he does this to trial people. So he grabs my gi. This person's like 10 times stronger than me. So you take your lapel out. You grab the very, very base of it, the tail of it, and then you send your elbow all the way over their arm. So my elbow came over the wrist, and now I go under. And now he's gonna stay there. I'm gonna, right here, this is important, I gotta trap and squeeze their thumb and their wrist as tight as I can. And now you spin. I got a pop out of his wrist on that. But the goal is to just keep spinning. So once I pull my own lapel out, my elbow goes over the wrist, I go under his arm, and then I go again. And then you go, and you just go, and you go, and you go. It's a really stupid submission, but it does work. I've seen it. I got hit with a really funny, cool combo of this when I was a blue belt, actually, because I knew about this wrist lock, because I'm big brain, and the dude, grab my lapel, the dude grabbed his lapel and started doing this. And I know about the wrist lock. So I let go of my grip, and he shot in on a fireman's carry, and he dumped me over. So he used the wrist lock as a threat, and he knew I would let go or I'd get submitted with the wrist lock. So anyway, it's a cool submission. So you take the base of your lapel out into your hand, you go over the wrist, and then you're gonna do a 360. I gotta spin again, a full 360. And then you do it again. If they don't tap, you just keep rotating, okay? Any questions on this one? There's nothing to it other than once your elbow is over, you gotta think their thumb is right here in your armpit. Pinch it really tight, elbow to ribs. Don't try to overhook it. Elbow strike your own rib. And now just rotate, you just spin. Yeah. Yeah, so their thumb, their hand is gonna be right here because initially they had the collar, our elbow went over. My thumb catches that hand. So my elbow is striking my ribs, trapping the thumb there. And as my elbow catches, now we start the rotation and we spin. We gotta trap their hand in the gi, smother it as we rotate for this, okay? Questions on this? Questions? I'll do it one more time. So he walks up, he grabs my lapel. He's 10 times stronger than me and more handsome, so I can't get this off. So I catch the base of my lapel and I go elbow over right here. Like that, I pinch my elbow to my hip, and now we start spinning. And now, so he's about to tap. I'm gonna do another circle, and as I'm doing a circle, he's gonna tap. If he didn't, I would keep rotating, but now you've got to untwine yourself from the submission, okay? Questions on this one before I show the other one? I'm just gonna let you guys drill this one first, but questions? Whatever side they grab, the base of that lapel, and now we just start spinning. Cool, let's get it. On 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, any last second questions on this one? Where they grab your gi, you pull the base of it out, and you spin through with that elbow, that forearm, that weave. No. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into it. So right now my right wrist is kind of injured from the tournament, the IBJJF, but I'll have you guys, when you do it, I'm gonna have you try to do it to me. So the game is, I'm gonna try to bend your wrist, either backwards or forwards, okay? I'm gonna try to bend your wrist. If somebody decides to super flex their fist, they make a really tight fist, especially if they super engage this thumb into their knuckles, it makes their wrist super sturdy, super reinforced. And now it makes it difficult to push backwards or forwards. So the actual game of catching wrist locks is, how do we get them out of this perfect fist and this strong wrist from all this flexion and tightness they have going on. So there's two things we need. I'm thinking about the end of the lever over their knuckle line or over their fingertips, because that's going to be the very, very, very end of the lever of their grip, is either over the knuckle line or over the fingertips. and I need to think about trapping their elbow, okay? So this is, I've shown this to a couple people before. I can't wrist lock myself no matter how hard I put pressure on, because naturally, as I push, my arm will just keep moving. And no matter how much you move, the shoulder is a ball and socket. So you could push someone's arm like behind their back, and they could still keep like twisting and rotating and squirming out. So you have to trap the elbow, and now we have to catch the end of the lever here, okay? But to get them out of this fist, what I want to do is I want to try to put pressure, like constricting pressure, just underneath the wrist. The way that I like to think about it, whether this is true scientifically or not, is I want to try to squeeze the blood out of their wrists when I do wrist locks in jiu-jitsu, so that not enough blood's getting to the hand and they can't make that full fist. So I'm squeezing this with something so that the hand kind of becomes weak. It's like, oh man, this is like hard to make a fist actually. That's when I bend the knuckles, and that's when I trap people's elbow, and that's when we have a really strong wrist lock, okay? So, I'll show like a basic figure 4 one, if you haven't let me use you.
That's what you're gonna get beat
No. So he's here, his wrist is here, right? You're gonna make a fist, okay? So, even if I tried to use all my strength to bend this, it would never happen. And even if I was 100 times stronger, I couldn't finish it, because even if I did, so now let me bend your wrist, like don't resist. Even if I couldn't finish it, because as I pull down, he can start moving his arm and his shoulder. So as I start pushing here, start pulling your elbow backwards, and now he can like pull his elbow down, and now I'm like chasing it because it's hiding, right? So what needs to happen is multiple things at the same time. 1, I'm doing that constriction. 2 is I'm going over, attempted the knuckles. And 3 is I need to trap his elbow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my hip and then my chin on top. So I'm using my core to bend down, and it's almost like I'm doing an Americana, a Kimura, a key lock, whatever you wanna call it, a figure 4. And now I'm trying to crunch all my weight onto the end of his knuckles, which initially I'm constricting and pulling it to my chest, and then I'm doing opposite. And now I'm crunching down to do my wrist locks, okay? But it's not here. This wrist locks aren't like a hand technique. It's a whole body, and now I start pressing and twisting to finish. But I need to get the bend first and the trap, and then you start crunching, but it's your whole torso. When I do wrist locks, my abs hurt. Like when I attempt them, my abs hurt, okay? So our partner is gonna make the tightest fist that they can. And what we have to do is we have to accomplish all those things at the same time. I have to constrict and trap this. I have to put pressure, in this case, over the knuckles themselves, like not over the base of the wrist, like over the top of the knuckles. Constricting, pressure here, and I gotta trap this preferably somewhere in my hip. So now as I complete those, now I use my chin to finish, and then you start rotating and pressing, okay? Any questions on like this figure 4 style wrist lock? And then I'll talk about actual scenarios where we're gonna use this. Okay, but we need to get, understand how to break people out of that super tight fist. Okay, constricting pressure, a trap of the elbow, and then countering pressure. So at the base of the wrist, it should be going backwards, and at the top of the wrist, it should be going forward at the same time to actually make it go. Okay? Any questions on these principles, like trapping the elbow, constricting pressure, top of the end of the lever, going over the knuckles? Any questions here? No. Okay, so you can do it on the ground. You can also do it like, I know, go ahead and stand up real quick. I know that I've seen people talk about this one as like not a self-defense or jiu-jitsu thing, as like more of like a bouncer thing, that bouncers can walk up to people and catch these figure 4 wrists and be like, oh, fight's over, I'll break it now. Because I trapped the elbow, I caught him, I constricted, I locked my figure 4, and now I'm pulling his elbow into my chest, and you're just walking around like, you caught him off guard. Okay, this isn't a real fight thing. It's not, bullshit self-defense. Like, we're not gonna do that in a jiu-jitsu fight or a real fight. This is someone's not looking at us, and we could trap them. You can just come over and you go, all right, we're walking the fuck out of here. I'll break it, man. I will, right? Does that make sense? But it's using this figure 4, trapping it, like it's using all the principles, okay? It's an easy one to demonstrate. Any questions on this? Again, with your partner, they're gonna super flex, okay? You gotta trap their elbow, preferably in your hip. You've gotta chop at the wrist and over the knuckles at the same time, and that chop at the wrist needs to be constricting. It should feel like you're pulling the blood out of their hand. Questions? And you can do the bouncer one if you want to also, okay? You walk up behind them and you catch your figure four. Let's get it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let's group up. Any questions? Questions on this one? No? So I said this to a couple of you. If you fight somebody that has very flexible wrists, so I already bent his wrist and he's not tapping. Let's pretend I have something under this, right? I'm pushing down hard, they're not tapping. The next thing is to add rotational pressure, okay? So you're bending it and you're twisting at the same time. So when we're on the ground, go ahead and go down. His elbow's not trapped there, so it's not a big deal. But when I'm here, and he hasn't tapped yet, maybe it won't be that effective to keep pushing down. So now I keep the pressure, and now you start twisting at the same time. So I'm doing that with that figure four, with my chin, and now you start twisting your torso, and it just becomes like super, super quick. But your whole body should be engaged when you wrist lock. You should smother the wrist with your whole body, okay? Any questions on this? Because this is like the fundamental, like, kind of how the wrist lock works, how your body should feel, like smothering it, the figure four, the constriction, the top of the lever, trapping the elbow. Any questions on this stuff? No? Okay, so go ahead and come up into my closed guard. So we're here, closed guard. I love doing wrist locks from closed guard because it helps me set stuff up. I didn't catch anything off of it, but in 2 of my matches this past weekend, I attempted wrist locks from closed guard to get overhooks and enter rubber guard. So I used it literally this weekend, this wrist lock stuff. One of them, anytime they grab my wrist, he grabbed my wrist. Okay, people do this for a lot of reasons, to stand up, to do a lot of shit. I'm gonna take my own wrist and place it under my neck. Now I'm gonna chop their wrist, and now I'm gonna use my chin to trap his knuckles and fingers, and now I start crunching. Okay? And what I'm trying to do is catch his elbow in my hip while I crunch. Remember, trapping the elbow? Up here is my figure four. Now it's backwards. I'm going over the fingertips this time. And to finish it, I'm literally doing a sit-up and pulling my knees to my chest at the same time. Now, the reason that I say I used this weekend, but I didn't submit anyone with it, is a lot of good people will try to do it in slow-mo. I'll go right here, and as I start crunching, they will feel this, and they're like, oh, if my elbow gets trapped in my hip or his hip, I'm gonna tap. So they will start to release their grip and flare their elbow to the side, and I will keep pulling my knees to my chest. Now I have an overhook. Now I twist. Now I'm here. I think in my matches I came to rubber guard and they ended up getting out, but you can go triangle, overhook, omoplata, whatever you want. But it's a figure four wrist lock, but I'm doing a crunch and a knee pull at the same time. And part of the reason is to finish the wrist lock. The other part of the reason is because when they pull away, we need to collapse and keep attacking. A lot of the time the goal of the wrist lock is 1, to piss off your training partner, or 2, you get a reaction out of someone and then we take what I really wanted in the first place, which is like chest to chest. Okay, if I keep trying to pull you down, you keep pushing me away, I will start doing slow motion reaches. And people all grab my wrist. And when they do it, I go figure four, I start sitting up and crunching and trying to pull them into that wrist lock. And if they undo, I will pull them in even tighter, hug them, and then I'll start attacking from closed guard. So now I've won the posture battle. You let me win it by trying to wrist lock you, okay? Any questions on this one? Questions? This is one of the transitional ones where it works. There's nothing wrong with it. It's really good. Even if they have 2 hands on, it works. I'm pulling my forearm under my own jaw. You chop at their wrist, and then you go wrist over wrist like an Americana or a Kimura. So you pull your forearm under your chin. I'll even open up my chin like so they can see what's happening. I'll look straight up. My hand goes right to my neck. My other arm chops the back of their wrist, and then you go wrist over wrist. And now we start crunching, and we start pulling our knees at the same time, okay? Questions on this one? Questions? Oh yeah, the other one. So, people will stall from closed guard. One of the ways, if they have their hands on my hips or my belt, right? If they're here, I'm always just doing a huge hip thrust, a huge knee pull, and then I'm trying to pull him so that his elbow flares a little. Once the elbow flares, I'm gonna start lifting my hips up and pulling down on their elbow to force the wrist lock. Again, most good people, as I do this, they release, and now we're here. Now I'm off to the hunts, and I'm off to other wrist locks, okay? So I'm trying to make him react off of this. I'm using my hips to get behind his elbow, and once I'm pulling with both arms until the forearm is straight up and down. Now, here's my elbow trap, my hips twist under, and now I start trying to attack him. But most people release, and as they do, we just catch, and we keep turning, we keep pulling, and we collect into our attacks, okay? So, if they attack anywhere around here, I'm isolating an arm, and now I'm using my hips as I pull down, and again, I'm using my chin. I'm trying to get my chin on top to crunch and hip up. And if it doesn't work, then I'm just forcing myself into these attacks, okay? And last one, if people stall with their hands in your armpits, I'm gonna go all the way over with one. I'm gonna grab the meat of his hand by his pinky. So all of this material here. And now I'm gonna do the same thing where I use my armpit to trap his wrist. And I start crunching. And there's the tap. So I have someone who's stalling. If I try to reach forward with either of my hands, it doesn't work because he's way taller than me, okay? So I go around the world and I catch their actual hand and I squeeze it as tight as I can. Now I take my own bicep over my knuckles and I twist and then I crunch. And there's a tap. And guess what, guys? When I do this all the time, people let go and I sit up. And now we start attacking our partner. Okay, so the whole goal is to threaten people. We want them to think, this guy's an asshole, this girl's an asshole for wrist locking us. I'm not gonna touch him anymore. That's exactly the thought I want them to go through their brain. And in one of my fights, the dude grabbed me like 3 times, and 3 times in a row, I went for that wrist lock, and he stopped grabbing me altogether in that spot. He just went for something else completely. He's like, fuck this guy, he's trying to wrist lock me. That's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want him to have that grip anymore. That's exactly what I wanted. Got him, right? All right, any questions on these? Options from closed guard. So if they grab the wrist to stand up, you know, the white belt 2-on-1 stand up, anytime someone initiates that, wrist lock. Pull your hand to your neck, chop their wrist, crunch and wrist lock. If people grab the belt, you're twisting to the outside, both hands on the elbow, pulling it wide, and now you're crunching on it, and you use your hips to either move side to side to help bend their wrist or up, okay? And if someone starts grabbing into your armpits, if the hand is here, you reach across, you grab the meat of their hand, and then you use your own bicep and armpit to trap it. And you turn away and you crunch. Same thing, okay? On any of these, if they let go early, you smother them and you hug them, and now we're doing jiu-jitsu. That was the whole point of the wrist lock, was get the fuck off of them, okay? Questions? Let's give it a shot on 3. 1, 2, 3. Questions on the closed guard wrist locks. Questions. Again, as a principle, they're great, right? Hands on hips, hands on the belt. I'm gonna try to wrist lock them, right? If hands are in the biceps, whether it's 4 fingers up or thumbs in, doesn't matter. I'm gonna grab the meat of that pinky and twist over it, right? And anytime people grab my forearm, you punch yourself in the neck, chop over the wrist, and then again, we do our whole crunch. But with all of these, the real reason I do them at the higher level is I want the reaction so I can catch the chest-to-chest hug. Here's my overhooks, my underhooks. Now we're doing jiu-jitsu. Like I said, I didn't win either of the matches, but both times I got into rubber guard completely off of people sitting back, grabbing my wrists. I did the figure 4 wrist lock, they ripped away, and I hugged them, brought them down, shifted onto my side, my foot came over the face, and I started playing rubber guard. So like, the whole thing that I just taught right there of like the attack into the hug into it, I used 2 times this weekend, different people, different matches. Gi and no gi, so it works, all right? So I use that all the time, I use it super commonly. So any questions on closed guard wrist locks? Questions? No? All right, let's go over some side control wrist locks. So I'm on top in side control. I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is not gonna be pretty. All right, side control wrist locks suck. The reason for that, his elbows have the mat behind him. Remember how I said trapping the elbow is one of the requirements? Okay, so now, usually I have to, when I'm on my back, when I'm in closed guard, or even if I'm like standing or whatever, I'm trying to use like my stomach to finish them. I'm still gonna do that here, but I'm using my stomach and my hips to trap their elbow, and now the second if I pull up on his wrist and he pulls down, I can pin it and then wrist lock him, because now the elbow trap is being done by the mat, okay? And I will do this to people all the time, like a jerk, honestly, where I will, one of their arms will be subdued somehow, underhook, whatever, and I'll pull up on people's wrists. And the second he pulls down, I'm gonna use my knee to pin it. And now this is a trick that's specific to this when people are on their back. Make a fist. I'm gonna grab his wrist and try to think about pulling his wrist out of socket. So I grab the hand and I start pulling it up. Now it bends no matter what. Okay, so what happens is his muscles, everything is set exactly where it needs to be. And I actually stretch it out of his flexion. So when I'm here, I'm pushing down with my knee and pulling up on the wrist, and then I bend it. Once it's bent, I can do any version of putting pressure over this. I can put my other knee on it, I could lean my chest on it, I could just push right here, I could do whatever I want. But because I have the mat behind him to attack and to help me trap, wrist locks become way easier. And this is where I'll do funny stuff where I'll double wrist lock people, like a wrist lock in each hand, because they didn't realize it, that they pulled backwards and they trapped their own elbow. Now all I have to do is figure out a way to bend this motherfucker, and I've got him, okay? So this is a really easy one. You pull on someone's arm, because I'm trying to switch under them like Casey Gatami type position, side control. I'm trying to get my leg under his shoulder. So you do this, and when they pull down, you just grab the wrist, you slide your shin over your knee. It's that simple. I pull on this, and I kind of stretch my shin a little bit, and then I can push down. And now I just start pushing, and again, now I start adding rotational pressure because he's not tapping. You start twisting and crushing. Like I said, it's not pretty, guys. All right? So anytime you can trap this, this means if I ever pull up on someone's arm and they pull down, and I can pin their arm to the mat and trap it with my shin, it's trapped. Now I've got to find a way to bend the wrist. See how I just gripped, pulled it, and now I've bent it. And now I can start rotational pressure, and I can just submit people with one hand. And my knee and the mat, okay? Questions on this one from side control. So it's specifically in correlation to shin pinning, right? So here's something interesting. If he's not allowed to make a fist again, so he's not allowed to make a fist, but he's allowed to defend this, and I start pushing down on his wrist, he can move his whole arm, his shoulder, and I'm gonna have to start like chasing it. You see what I mean? So that's the goal, that's the job of this one. It's stop the chase now. Now I just pull up on the wrist until I feel his hand get a little weaker, and then you push down and you start rotating if they're not tapping, okay? My favorite is doing the push-pull where I trick them by pulling up, and as he pulls down, now I can push down and I can pin the arm. Now I have it pinned, and now I attack. But by all means, you don't even have to do a huge, like, pushing the wrist to the mat. You can pull up on this arm, and when he pulls down, you can slide the other knee over and just sit here on people. Pull up, and then bend people's wrists, okay? Any questions on shin pinning wrist locks? This can be done from, I could do it from here, I could come here, boom, boom, act like I'm gonna do a spinning arm bar, and then just turn, and anywhere that I have a shin pin, and I can catch someone's hand, I'm pulling up, and then I'm like going up and over the knuckles to finish my wrist lock. It's the shin pin wrist lock. You can do it. I've been in mount before. I do this to dudes that are way bigger than me because I think it's funny. I'll be in mount and I'll do this to them, right? I can't even put my knees down because they're that much bigger than me. So I just catch an arm, I pin, I subdue them for like 3 or 4 seconds, and then I just sit. And I just start looking for it. And then I'm like, oh, there it is. I pull up, and then I got it. And then I just start pushing down and twisting the wrist. Okay? But this is the shin pin wrist lock. Any questions on this? No. What?
Nothing.
Nothing? Oh, one more. Go ahead and go down. So the other one is the one that it's like you're punishing somebody for framing. Now, to this day, my right wrist hurts from my coach hip switching into me. I don't even really want to show it, but just so you're aware that it's a threat. If someone's stiff arming your actual hip itself, and I can send my hip over his fingertips, you can hip switch and drop all your weight on people and hurt them. So I don't really like this one because there's no way to really have good control as you do it. You can do it though if you want to be a jerk or if you're in a real competition, you're trying to finish your pass, and the only thing you're working through is these stiff arms. Like you've got good grips on the legs and the upper body, you're like, dude, I don't want to get off these grips. Right here, you can just drop your right hip on the mat and then get back up to your toes. And people they'll get scared about touching you because you'll wrist lock by throwing your hip right over their hand. It's shitty because again, like there's not really a good way to do it, like controlled, slow, making sure your partners are going to be safe. So just so you know, it's there. But using the same principle, some people frame and the palm of this hand will sit on that shoulder, that front shoulder. So here's a good example of where I wouldn't quite do the wrist lock because his fingertips are kind of hovering over the top, like they're like past my shoulder. When it's here is when I do the wrist lock. His fingertips, I can feel them, they're inside my shoulder line. So now what I do is I start to move my torso towards north-south. I go around the world and I catch their elbow. Now I start rolling my shoulder into their elbow as I start putting my weight on them, and you finish the wrist lock. So as you're coming in to connect to your partner and they start pushing on you, especially you feel that hand in your shoulder, you can immediately, we're going around the world, I'm starting to turn my head and everything to trap the elbow. And now I'm pulling the elbow upwards as my shoulder pulls down, like rolls forward into his knuckles. And now I'm trying to use my body weight to help pin and trap that elbow and that wrist at the same time. So again, if I feel like the palm on my shoulder push, I'll never do this because it's too hard to collect the top of their fingertips to do this. But it's when I feel it like more like this, where I can feel the palm like, it's more like on my chest, the base of their palm, so I know the fingertips are high. Now I'm swimming, catching, and I'm flattening, okay? And if you kind of combine these, you become a problem child. You're in side control and you go here and he pulls his arm backwards, and as he pulls the arm backwards, you start shin pinning and hunting this wrist, and now it just becomes like a constant like threat of them, and then they're just like trying to do, they don't even know what's happening, and then you take an underhook and you go to mount. And that's what I like to do the most. I like to annoy people until they start running away, and then I just take positions, okay? So 2 types, shin pin, and then the one where they're framing on you. Okay, you've got to put your shoulder over their fingertips, and you're pulling on their elbow at the same time. Questions on these two from side control? Yeah.
On the shin pinning one, what other jiu-jitsu stuff do you do if they like hide pin, if they slap the mat? You like trap the arm here and then do this?
I will, here watch, can you come here real quick? I will, if I initiate it, a lot of the time if I initiate the shin pin one, I'm gonna be an asshole, I'm gonna find it, like I'm gonna get to it. So I go like this, and I do this, and then you hide it. So you do that. The more pressure I put here, the less you're gonna wanna resist me. You see what I mean? It's not really about like, oh, here's his hand, let me get it off the mat. It's more like, let me like all my weight goes right through. So if I'm trying to pick his arm up off the mat, rather than picking his arm up off the mat, I'm gonna press down hard as heck here. See how the hand already started to come up? Now I pull up on the wrist, and now it starts to just bend on its own. Yeah. Does that make sense though? It's less about like following the hand, more about that's part of that constriction. Remember I talked about constricting the wrist? This one, we're constricting them at the bicep, so their hand just goes, and they lose all the tension they had, all the resistance, all that hope they had, it's all gone, okay? Any questions on this? 2 types? No. All right, let's give it a shot. On 3, 1, 2, 3. That's good. Any questions on the side control ones? Questions? No. So the shin pin one, I use a lot. Like in preparation for the seminar, I was wrist locking a bunch of people because I was like, well, I gotta practice. I gotta get ready to say what I'm gonna say. I gotta do it with resistance, see if there's anything I'm missing. And usually in a round, I'd catch some random white belt like 12 times. And I'm like, okay, 7 of them were shin pin wrist locks. And then like, because now they're scared to grab me, and the shin pin one I can force, right? If they grab my wrist from closed guard, I can do that figure 4 one, but that's all reliant on them grabbing me. But if they're like running away, I can still push you to the ground, pin your arm, and then catch that shin pin one. So I do the shin pin one probably the most, like in terms of like quantity, like numbers, okay? Any questions on those? No. I'll show that later, never mind. Okay, so there's the triangle wrist lock, / failed triangle wrist lock. I think this one's really important to learn, actually, okay? I think I'm gonna call on someone else? No. Okay, So the triangle wrist, we'll do it to the other side. So the triangle wrist lock. So I'm here, in triangles, I'm trying to work arms across the body. I'm trying to break posture, I'm trying to cut an angle. So when you get here into the triangle, one of the most common things that people will do is they'll bring this elbow back and then they'll connect their hands right here, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna force my back and shoulders onto the mat. I'm gonna hip thrust really, really high. And right here, I'm gonna start gripping over his knuckles and squeezing. And I'm also gonna grab a C-clamp, a Lego hand, and squeeze at the base of their elbow. Now, I'm gonna start pushing and almost doing like the stretch that we did on the shin pin one where we pulled up and then we kind of cut the corner and press down. Kind of similarly, I get here, I lift, I pull down, I haven't dropped my hips yet. Now I start dropping my hips and doing a sit-up. Now I start pressing and then I start twisting, okay? So here, if I just have my hips dropped, just grabbing his fist and his elbow and trying to play his arm like an accordion, it's not enough. I need to be very explosive, huge, and now I'm almost like pushing him away from me in a way, because I don't want his elbow like perfectly caught on my hip, so I'm trying to crush, and then I start pushing, and I'm going through. And something that'll happen is I'll do this, and some people will just resist like crazy, and now they're thinking about that so much that I just go back to adjusting the actual triangle itself. So I'll use this one like in tandem with trying to force the arm across, because a lot of the time when I really catch a good bite on this elbow and I crunch and I start bending, people feel the elbow trap and they'll move their arm a little bit. And when they move their arm, they kind of like cinched up the perfect arm bar or the perfect triangle for me. Okay, so go ahead and switch sides real quick. So I'm cupping this, and I'm also trying to use my knee to help trap here. So I'm lifting my hips up, I'm pushing on their wrist, I cup, and now my knee's gonna find my hand, and it helps me press. The outside of my thigh finds my hand, and then I press, okay? Any questions on this before I say the next thing? No. Okay, so now, the failed triangle or the failed armbar wrist lock. Some of you guys are gonna look at me like I'm crazy. Okay, he's in a crazy good leg drag right now. He's super deep on it. To get back to the triangle, I'd have to kick off and throw my head all the way over. And anyone that gets to this leg drag position knows they gotta keep their ear glued to the outside of the knee because they're getting ready to run that corner, right? So getting to this triangle on somebody with even like 10% resistance, he starts leaning on me a tiny bit, I can't get my leg over. So what do? Do we frame and shrimp? No, we're gonna wrist lock him. I'm gonna reach through with both my arms and grab the elbow. I'm gonna pull on it so that his arm is actually really, really tight on my leg. I make the same grip as the triangle. I move my hips a little, and I'm gonna lock a triangle choke over his shoulder, but this leg needs to strike my own hand. And now I lock my triangle choke. Now, try to finish the guard pass. He can't, and I caught my wrist lock. Okay, so Kai, I thought I broke his wrist doing this to him because he ran into the guard pass. Kai's a great brown belt, and he's a fucking killer. And he leg dragged, diving leg drag, super beautiful, perfect. And I was just laying there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna wrist lock him now, right? So, but he's deep on that leg drag. He's around the corner, and when he turned, he ran into that wrist lock. Okay, I just did the same thing to Darius, the black belt from South, on Friday, and I was like, I'm sorry, Darius, I'm getting ready for a seminar. I'm sorry, dude. So I think I missed like an arm bar or something on him. So you can do this from a lot of different locations. Like if I went like this and he decided to start throwing my leg by, I'm here, catching, moving, triangle choke. Now I press over his knuckles and then I start crunching. I'm like pressing his knuckles around my thigh. So I'm almost like pressing around the thigh. Now I start crunching and pushing everything together at the same time. This one I catch on good people all the time because they don't know it's a thing because I invented it, okay? Any questions on this? As they're hitting their leg drag. Yeah.
That outside leg,
Mm-hmm.
where that elbow you showed.
That outside leg, my knee, I'm squeezing his elbow with my hand really tight right here. my thigh, my knee pinch my own hand. So because it's behind his elbow, when I pinch, my hand's on the other side. Now the two forces. Yeah. Questions on this one? So it's kind of the same thing in the actual high diamond, the triangle, and even once the leg's over the shoulder, it's adjusted a little bit, but we can still do it. So I've lost some triangle. I shot up on a triangle. I did it really lazy, right? And then they start throwing my legs by, and I'm like, oh no, you got me. And then I catch the elbow, lock the triangle over your own hand, drive your hips in, and now we got a cool wrist lock. Okay? Questions? I use this one a lot, from the triangle and from this like a little open passing position, okay? I use both of them like quite often. Let's get it, on three. 1, 2, 3. All right, guys, let's regroup. Questions on the triangle wrist lock or this little like failed armbar, failed triangle, like leg drag position wrist lock where they're kind of cupping your thigh. That's the one that I catch people with all the time. So any questions on these? Questions? No? Okay, so I've got two that I'm gonna show on the back. One of them is attacking from the attacking position and one is from the defending position. So I'm on my partner's back for the first one. I have my seatbelt. Initially, I'm gonna go and find this far arm. So the same side arm, I'm gonna catch. A lot of the times what I will literally do is go like this and I'll pull on people's hand to expose this. So people will like make a fist, right? And they're not paying attention, so maybe I'm trying to choke them and they start defending with this hand. And then all of a sudden I'm like here and I start pulling on their hand to like open the hand. And now what I'm looking for is the meat of the hand. And as I have the meat of the hand like that, I'm gonna start acting like I'm gonna throw him into a triangle or an arm bar, but then I'm gonna throw my bicep over the hand, and then my own hand is gonna catch their elbow. And then again, I'm gonna start twisting and squeezing on this. And sometimes I get the wrist lock, and sometimes I get the shoulder lock. So if you ever catch this grip, my index finger goes at the base of their pinky, and I start squeezing that. All that's happening is that I'm passing myself over their head, and now as I start to bend it, I throw the inside of my elbow over the whole thing, and then I'm collecting and pulling it into my chest. I will do this to people while I walk arm bars. Sometimes here they tap, sometimes they extend the arm to resist the wrist lock pressure, so start extending your arm like your elbow, and then you just walk into the arm bar. Okay? So I use this one actually anytime I can catch that grip. I'll be like, I'm on the hunt now. Because now I'm firing into this wrist lock or releasing into the arm bar. So it's really just a seatbelt, and on the bottom side of the seatbelt, I'm connecting a same side grip. The higher up on the arm you go, the weaker this is. If he makes a fist right now and punches outward, there's no chance in the world. If I was like twice as big as I am now, I wouldn't be able to hold his arm there. Plain and simple. I'm gonna get to the end of the lever. This is the freaking start of the lever, the very end of the lever, the meat of the hand. Where the pinky finger is, right there is that sweet spot. I'm getting as low on the hand as I can. And now I'm basically bracing their head as I collect into this wrist lock. And if it fails, you just throw the leg over and you start extending. Because people, to resist this, right? We need that elbow trapped, we need to bend their wrist. We're accomplishing those, we're going backwards with this one. When you trap people's elbow on this one, they're like, oh, I can feel there's a gap. And they'll move their elbow and start extending the arm. And as they do, they give you that arm bar and you just fall back right into your lap, okay? Questions on this one. It is going backwards. You bend their hand like this. And now you smother it and you grab the other elbow. Questions on this one when you're on the back and how it leads into the arm bar. No. Okay, so now when he's on my back, so he's got his seatbelt. He chose to use this arm as the top arm. So I'm gonna pull down on the arm. I'm gonna shrug my shoulder up, and now I'm gonna make sure we fall to the choking side. Now right here, I'm gonna start pushing his wrist so that it's perpendicular with the mat, and then I start wrist locking. And again, I'm trying to use my neck and my shoulders to trap his elbow. And guess what happens with good people? They pull their elbow and their shoulder backwards to retract, and I start getting out of the back to start attacking and escaping from my own stuff. So this one is specific to me falling to the choking arm, so go ahead and do it again and use this side as the choking side. They're here, I will intentionally sometimes pull down on people's elbow to make sure I know where it is. And then we fall to the choking side. Now right here, his arm is kind of doing this, guys. It's kind of like this awkward diagonal. So I pull it up, and then I start pushing down, palm striking the knuckles as I jam the wrist. Now you're trying to finish this. And people pull their arm out to resist, and then you just immediately get your hips and your shoulders to the mat, and we're out of the back, okay? So this is pretty common when people are setting up their back control, and I feel like I have their hand, completely. I could do any version of whatever escape I want to. A lot of the time when I've already got the hand, I never let him connect the seatbelt. I've got it like in front of me, right? I will go to the choking side on this just to start pressing into my wrist lock so that they have to retract the arm out or tap, and then I'll turn, and I feel so good here, like there's no way they're gonna get to mount, there's no way they're gonna submit me. It's like a really safe version of an escape. So really early catching the hand, I'll do this one, and then anytime I can really catch that hand, even if we're like later in the defense, I'll do it. But especially early, like preemptively, you've already got their hand, you're hiding away, that hand comes over the top for the seatbelt. You catch it, and you just fall to that side and you just wrist lock them, okay? Questions, whether you're on the back or someone's on your back. Two types. You guys want to see the first one more time? Yeah. So I have my seatbelt, the bottom arm grabs the same side wrist, but the wrist is weak. I got to get to here on the hand. Okay, I pull it up, and now I'm just like pushing on the face, and my feet walk up the body. So foot on the hip, leg across, now I'm ready to go. I throw my arm over, the inside of my elbow smothers the hand and my own knuckles. And now I go elbow to elbow, and I just start crunching everything together. And if I feel like it's failing at all, I'll start using my legs to kick people away, and I'll just immediately start arm barring. So usually the threat of one leads to two. Okay? The threat of one for the wrist lock when we're escaping the back leads to the back escape. All right? Questions on this? There's two of you. Let's get it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me use you real quick. So in the arm bar, so go ahead and lay on your back. In the arm bar, a lot of people, can you 180 so your head's over here? A lot of people, when they're here, I'm trying to, by all means, fall back and finish my arm bar. If you guys have been to the arm bar seminar, it follows a lot of the same principles of catching the end of the lever. I'm covering their thumb, and I throw my elbow over, and I pinch my elbows to my chest, and now my body weight finishes arm bars. So I don't want you trying to do stuff like this or like this. This is all super weak. And it's not only weak for me, it's also strong for him because I'm nowhere near the end of the lever when I start pulling from you. I've got to cover all the way up here and then smother it. So now using the same principles of covering and smothering, anytime people have their hands connected, you can aggressively attack wrist locks from here to make them disconnect their hands and hand you the arm bar in the first place. So again, I need to find a way to bend his wrist forward or backwards. I need to trap this elbow. So when I do this, my personal preference is to trap it with my ribs. I like to pull the elbow to my bottom hip, and then I sit forward as I pull down. Now my stomach and my ribs have kind of trapped it. Now I'm pushing over his knuckles as I'm chopping through. And now his hand's disconnected, and then I arm bar. Or you could disconnect their hand, and then you could just rip onto the wrist lock too. Okay, but some people, they're so used to the pull of the forearm, the arm, the bicep, they're so used to the pull that they're not even thinking that their elbow's trapped. They're so worried about the extension of the arm that they're collapsing everything, and now I collapse over it. It's like they collapsed, so I'm gonna collapse over their collapse. Like they're trying to be tight, I'm gonna make you too tight. I'm gonna smother it. Now if he opens at all to defend this, he's giving me the arm bar again. Okay, so when we're in that triangle, like I said earlier, you can do that little like accordion style wrist lock. Sometimes I do that, people move their elbow, and then I just adjust the triangle. So here, I'm trying to smother the elbow as the first step. I don't want to try to catch the wrist, because even if I caught his wrist perfectly, his elbow can start flailing. So I've got to place it on my bottom hip, and then I do a big sit up, and I'm trying to like literally like sit my ribs over it, and now I'm trying to crush the knuckles, and I'm trying to wrist lock. Okay, you can either go double over the top like this, or you can go figure 4. And again, once I catch like the knuckles, I just start rotating and pulling. Because I have this trapped, he's stuck, he's not going anywhere. Anytime it gets too far apart and you don't feel like you have the wrist, you can fall back on the arm bar. Anytime you feel them start to open or try to move their elbow, usually that's a sign of like the arm bar is ready to go. Because when people move the elbow, the resistance on the pull is super weak and you can just start ripping through it, okay? But I do this all the time. Sometimes I just attack my regular arm bars so tight, I'll cover people's hand and just squeeze it as tight as I can, and then I just throw my knuckles over. And because naturally I did it right there, I trapped, it'll just wrist lock people. Just because his hands are together, I just grabbed and I squeezed as tight as I can, and now my elbow's like striking over the top, and now I'm just crushing, and I have my wrist locks, okay? Any questions about wrist locking people out of the arm bar? Questions? If they do the rear naked defense and their hand is hidden, I'm not thinking wrist lock really ever here. I'm always thinking, how can I get to fingertips? So I can pull elbows together and reclamp, and now I'm hunting his fingertips, and now I'm throwing my elbow over, and I can wrist lock him here because his elbow's trapped on my bottom hip, right? But just so you're aware, even if it's all the way back there and the hands aren't like in front of you connected, you can start like pulling on arms and crossing your ankles tighter, and now I found his hand and his thumb, and now I'm just elbow striking over it until he taps or he lets the arm go, and now we have an arm bar. So getting good at kind of like aggressively jamming their elbow into your bottom hip, the hip being closer to the legs, and then leaning forward, and now I'm like smothering that wrist. I smother the end of the hand, the knuckles, I'm grabbing everything, and then we go, okay? A lot of the times from the armbar ones specifically, I don't know if you guys have ever done the thing where you shake hands with somebody and they back up their handshake a couple inches and they grab over your fingers and you're like, you motherfucker, I'm gonna, like you get really upset about it because it's like, dude, I can't even grab your hand back. I can't even do the gentlemanly handshake. Well, that's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna intentionally not let him grab us back. I'm gonna cover his fingers and squeeze them to kind of make his hand do that little burrito thing intentionally, even when the hands are connected. Even if you grab and their hand doesn't budge a bit, you want that pressure on their fingertips, okay? So whatever the grip is on their hands, I'm gonna grab, because I'm on this side of the body, I'm gonna catch and squeeze. So connect your hands in an S grip or a gable or something. Even here, I'm just gonna go over and just squeeze everything. And now my elbow goes over that, and it'll wrist lock him if I have my his elbow trapped under my hip like that, okay? Any questions on wrist locking people from the armbar position? S grip, gable grip, rear naked choke, you can force it through any of them, okay? Questions? Being aggressive, cover, squeeze all the might out of it, and then wherever your knuckles are, throw your elbow over it. Pinch, or you can do the figure four one, that first one that we learned. Figure four and you crunch over it, okay? Let's get it on 3, 1, 2, 3. We're here. Right, cross face underhook is great, nothing wrong with it. This is how we get to mount. It's one of your only options in nogi. In the gi, we have another option, and that's taking people's lapel and snapping it out diagonally to try to get everything you can out of their belt. And now we can come under the shoulder, cinch this up, and now I just do a row and I pull my shoulder into their face. You can do a really heavy cross face. You might tap and make them go unconscious. This is a phenomenal sequence, absolutely phenomenal. And some people are savvy to it. So what they do is when you do this, they pull their elbow to the mat. So now I can't get under his elbow. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna go over and we're gonna cinch this up over the wrist. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push down on his knuckles and into the mat, okay? So he has denied my access to that cross face with the lapel. So I take over the wrist, and now you cinch it up as tight as you can. And I actually want to turn people on their side a little and get behind them so I can start going over the knuckles. You can also use this same position to trap people into triangle chokes and arm bars, okay? So it's just a fancy little gi trap. I'm tricking my partner. I'm making him put the elbow on the mat so I don't catch that deep cross. If they ever let you get under the elbow, by all means, cinch it up, cinch it up, cinch it up. Heavy shoulder, we're doing jiu-jitsu, we're working. But if they rip their elbow down to the mat, I'm doing the same loosening, and now I'm snatching. I really don't want it to be like a lot of slack in there when I make the grip. It's gonna be hard. I'll do it once, sometimes I'll pull it twice, and I've really got it tight. Now I do that little corner cut. A little bit of the pull, a little bit of the corner cut, and now we have an easy wrist lock. Okay? Any questions on this one before I show the next one?
So when you are pulling up on a part, isn't it like a really tension heavy thing?
With the grip behind the head? Yeah, so once it's here, I'll initially grab this. This is pretty weak, so I need to re-cinch it up and like feed it to that hand. And now there's a fuck ton of tension built. Like there's a bunch, and now I'm coming over the knuckles, or now I'm leaving his arm trapped there, and I'll catch this one, and then I'll throw my leg over the neck for the triangle choke. But I've trapped his arm because he decided to pinch, and now I'm going over the wrist, and now they're like trapped up with their hand across their chest. Any last second questions on this one? No? Okay, turn on your side. So, the Kimura position, all right? People don't realize that traps are everywhere, okay? When people defend too much of the Kimura with their entire body, if I have a tight belt, I will feed the belt. If not, I'll use the same side lapel, but I like the belt the most to feed into the forearm here. Now you can come back and do these gnarly paper cutter chokes, or you can lean your chest over the wrist, and now you can start wrist locking people. But this is a little trap that I'll play. You can also play this from the crucifix position, where you're here, and now you clamp people's arm down, and you start looking to trap it, and now you start wrist locking with your trap. But otherwise, I'm choking him here. This is my super trap. So they're resisting. He's pulling his elbow to the mat. I can't really get a good grip on his wrist. So I take his lapel and I stretch it into my wrist. Now I start clamping his arm up, and I got his elbow to the mat. Now I'm just pushing down with my little super trap. And same thing from that little Kimura I just showed, where I'm here, he starts resisting. His elbow is super tight, and now I'm feeding that tail of the belt over to trap. Now here's my trap. You can do fancy stuff with this. You can do this, and you can just start feeding reverse triangles. You can step on people's wrists and wrist lock them from here. There's a lot of stuff from this. This trap is very, 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 very tight. But you got to pull all the slack out of this. You really got to like cinch it up, and like really pull it over to get that good bite on this. Okay? Questions on these two? Questions? Some random gi shit. Actually, because of the time, I'm just going to show the other couple real quick. We can still drill it, but just because of the time restraint. Everybody knows this one. I'm just going to show it. Let me have your sleeve. He's going to be on his knees or standing, and I'm going to go to lasso guard. All right. The trick to entering lasso is you turn on your hip. All right. And then from here, I have this sleeve, and I'm using my calf to strike the wrist to open up his arm. All right. Go ahead and pull your elbow to your hip. All right, if I try to go to lasso from here, it's really difficult. So I use my calf to strike the wrist, and then I snatch up, I'm extending my leg, and then I face towards the ceiling. Now I'm finding his wrist, and I'm catching his knuckles as I turn over, and I'm trying to finish my wrist lock. So what's happening is because he's pulling backwards, trying to get out of the lasso, I just palm over his knuckles, and I press. Very common in the gi. When I'm here, if they don't do anything, by all means, you can just go to lasso. I just get into the habit of getting all the way on my side, and I strike. And now I extend up into the armpit, I load my knee to my chest, and I face the ceiling, and now I'm just pushing on the knuckles for my wrist lock. A lot of people, to escape lasso, they'll weave the hand through to the outside of my leg, and then once it's here, place your palm on my thigh, and just start finger crawling your foot. Yeah, see? So a lot of people, when they initially feel lasso, they swivel and they finger walk, and the whole time they're passing with the rest of their body, so it sucks. But when you initially set this up and people start to swivel, you'll catch it. You'll turn back towards it, and then you'll wrist lock. You'll push through it, and you'll wrist lock in the lasso guard. Okay? Question on the lasso wrist lock? This one, like, most people know about. So it's very common, be aware, but it is honestly super easy to hit. Okay. Questions? Kimura one, the crucifix one, using the lapel, or this one, the lasso one? No. All right, let's do the last thing. Let's give it a shot. On 3. 1, 2, 3.